Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So even though I did a video like this not too long ago, I still keep getting more and more questions, especially right now, about what champions in my opinion are the best to use your generic 6-star awakening gems on. And obviously that has to do with more and more people exploring Act 7 and them kind of itching and burning to use that awakening gem. So, first things first, you don't have to use that awakening gem immediately. That's also an important point to note, and keep that in mind. If you do not have a target you would feel 100% comfortable using the gem on, you don't have to do it right now. You can just wait a bit and figure out how you feel about it. That being said, I will make this a top 10 video, but before we get to that top 10, we need to kind of cover the base. First things first, I do think any champion in top 5 prestige or, top 8 prestige is worth the generic awakening gem if you plan on, ranking seeding that champion up and if you do care about prestige. So the first exception there is always the prestige champions, because your prestige matters. You're going to be benefiting from that every single moment as you keep playing this game in alliance modes and stuff like that, and it is worthwhile investment. Even if you're not the biggest fan, or even if a champion doesn't necessarily absolutely has to have that awakened ability like Dr. Doom, it's still very much so worth using that. Second thing is, champions you absolutely love and you will use. It doesn't matter what I think, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If you, pull a new champion that you're absolutely loving, Joe Fixit for instance, and you want to use him as much as you can. For instance, maybe you had a 5-star Joe Fixit and you just want to have like, 6-star rank 3 or 6-star rank 4 to play with. Give it a gem. It is a game at end of the day. Before long, these gems will be coming to you more and more often. They're just going to get more and more commonly available. And yeah, if you have somebody that you absolutely enjoy using, don't worry about what other people think. Use that awakening gem on those champions. And third thing is my personal, kind of like a safeguard system that I have with Awakening Gems for most time. And I am somewhat conservative when I use my Awakening Gems, but that is because I typically end up ranking champions out of place of luxury, not because of some real big need. Because, realistically, I have a big enough account and I don't desperately need, anybody new in, ranked up. And that is, I like to use Awakening Gems on champions that I don't really have a big chance or a big opportunity to pull anytime soon. So that typically is either A, newly released champions when they are freshly introduced. For instance, I was lucky enough to pull Kitty Pryde from Cav Crystal when she was, just introduced in the game. And I immediately gave her the generic gem without thinking too much whether she would be worth it or not. We needed one for defense. I didn't even, know the champion too much, but I gave her the generic gem because I knew for a fact it's going to be a couple of months till she even gets added to the featured crystals. And I wasn't going to open any more cow crystals, so there's virtually no chance I would end up duping that champion. And in a similar situation right now, if I were to get Omega Sentinel, for instance, I know there's going to be at least like another 3 months till she's added in the featured crystal. It's going to be approximately similar time until she's added in the basic crystal. So I will virtually have no chance for a very long time to duplicate that champion naturally. So I feel a lot safer and, at ease investing that awakening gem in those champions. Similarly, I'd probably, I don't think Black Cat needs that awakening. But I think if Black Cat would need that awakening, and if I would be lucky enough to pull her, I wouldn't think too long before giving it awakening gem to Black Cat. Right, that being said, overall, top 10 best champions in the game to give awakening gems in my personal opinion. And again, this should be pretty much covered with the first couple of disclaimers that you can have your favorites and go for it. Spot number 10, Spiderman 2099. I think he's a fantastic champion. I think he's on up and up. Obviously, the main kind of contention of value for the champion at the moment is Alliance Wars, but I also do think that the man will be putting in more and more work in Battlegrounds and other game modes, and people are discovering his versatility and how he manages to make fights work for him, and I do think that he's a worthwhile Awakening Gem target for sure with spot number 10. Spot number 9, Mr. Fantastic. I do think Mr. Fantastic is ahead there in the game. I do think Mr. Fantastic is one of those champions that can do a ton of things even unawakened and is worth ranking up even unawakened. But if you do enjoy Mr. Fantastic, he's definitely worthwhile target for Awakening Gem, because once you do awaken him, it's kind of similar with Ghost. You can just set up so much quicker and you can finish fights so much quicker thanks to that increased power gain. And most importantly, in like longer and heavier matchups, you can basically have that level 3 Fury active pretty much at all times, which is massive for his damage output. Spot number 8, we're going to go with Nimrod. Nimrod, again, is one of those champions similar to Mr. Fantastic. I do think he's worthwhile rank up even unawakened, but having that extra armor up and extra charge every time against mutants is quite huge. And also significant increase in damage, significant increase in the duration and potency of that energize buff, so on and so forth. So ultimately, I do think Nimrod is well worth Awakening Gem, his prestige or not, and your 6 stones too. Right, spot number 7 is Hyperion. Oldie but Goldie. He doesn't need many 6 stones. If you take him to 620, that's enough. Get him to 620 and you'll be fine. The biggest thing about Hercules here, sorry, not Hercules, Hyperion, is that you can obviously rank 3 him unawakened, but I have a friend who did a lot of testing with unawakened Hyperion, and the biggest thing there is quite simple. Unawakened rank 3 Hyperion effectively equals rank 5 5-star Hyperion. That's how important that signature ability is, because you gain increased power gain, because your power gain buff lasts longer, you gain more power overall, so you can access all of the shenanigan rotations better. Your Fury duration is increased and everything else, and that is huge, and he's definitely a quality champion. And this is one of those champions where, again, I think he's worth Awakening Gem, and he's especially good to awaken if you do not have many 6 stones to invest. Now we're going to move on to Tigra. With Tigra is one of those champs where I know that there are a lot of people who love her unawakened, but honestly I have played unawakened Tigra, I have played low sig Tigra, and recently I have taken my Tigra to a quite high signature level, and the difference is huge. First of all, unawakened, she's going to be a lot slower in vast majority of the fights where you typically use Tigra. To a point where there are some people that are hardcore defenders of viability of unawakened Tigra, and I agree in long fights, definitely not in short ones. Then low sig Tigra, it just induces panic, because when you start a fight and you see all your senses drop off in 3 to 4 seconds, you feel less confident, you think you're messing up, and you kind of feel rushed to make silly decisions. So I do think that Tigra is well worth Awakening Gem, but I also think if you do, then you better sig her up to like 160 or something like that, at least. Ideally it's sig to 100, because she does, you do yourself become a lot more comfortable playing Tigra when she's at sig 200, and that also lets you learn easier, because you do not feel like you're consistently messing up. That has been like a huge shift for me, to a point where recently in off-season I'm not the greatest Tigra player, but I brought in Tigra in War, I finished several fights, and I also soloed a linked Alliance War boss using Tigra, and the only difference there was the fact that I had given my Tigra more SIGs, and I kind of immediately felt more confident using her, and you guys know I'm not the greatest Tigra player. Second thing here, sorry, not second thing, but 2, 3, 4, 5th. Spot number 5, I'm going to give it to Kitty Pryde. Some people will perhaps debate her higher, but I do think she's a fantastic generic gem target. I think she's a fantastic, phenomenal champion that's currently at the forefront of MCOC. And she is definitely putting in tons of work in many different game modes. In some game modes, maybe she's not performing as well as people thought. She's definitely not as tough of a defender. For instance, in Battlegrounds, initially everybody was afraid of Kitty Pryde, but very quickly I realized that it's not all that hard. You don't necessarily even need like a very specific counter for her. You just need a super aggressive playstyle and, get her to do special attacks, take them on a block, and the prowess will kind of eat away itself. So in kind of like generic conditions, she's not the toughest defender, so she's not quite performing there that well as people thought initially. However, offensively, she's everything she was meant to be, and perhaps more at times. And I do think that there is a huge difference whether you take 80% less damage or you take no damage at all, which obviously can let you survive all sorts of level 3s, all sorts of damage over time, or high burst damage things. And then everything else that comes with that Awaken ability is just like a bonus, but I do think she is a very, very worthwhile target for an Awakening Gem. Spot number 4 is still Ghost. I know it's going to be controversial with some people, and I don't know why this community is often so quick to disregard and discard champions. In case of Ghost, I can kind of get it, because Kabam has been spending a lot of time to make sure that Ghost doesn't necessarily, you know, roll through the entire contest. But even right now, in Act 7, she's still one of the best champions in so many fights, despite how much Kabam tries to slow down and hinder her. And in Alliance War, you know, there's a reason why she's still one of the most popular banned champions, just because she smashes through that much. And for a while, I was kind of like maybe reserved in giving Ghost a generic Awakening Gem, especially because there isn't that big of a difference in between, let's say, a rank 3 low Sig or unduped Ghost compared to max Sig 5-star Ghost. But now that we're moving on to 6-star rank 4 meta slowly but surely, and there are, you know, more options available for Sigging champions, I do feel a lot more comfortable recommending people going back all in with the Ghost, because I do not think she's going to go away anytime soon. I still look at her as one of the best champions in the game, if not the best champion. Probably the best champion, realistically. And she's just phenomenal. And, you know, you can try and deny it as much as you want, but she's good. She's crazy good. You know it. And that Awakened ability, again, there is a group of people that think, oh, Ghost doesn't need to be awakened. But there is a massive difference. To best explain in practical terms, again, in Act 7, I used to bring in my 6-star rank 3 that was like Sig 40. And after doing a couple of fights, I actually backed out of the entire quest, subbed out my 6-star rank 3 Sig 40 Ghost, brought in my 5-star rank 5 Ghost, and destroyed the entire lane. Because you do get so much more power if your Ghost is high Sig, and that means that you get your special attacks. That also means that you can use your special attacks before your opponent can, and so on and so forth. And the fight is entirely different, depending whether your Ghost is low Sig, unawakened, or high Sig. And she's one of those champions at this point, I would say. If you do give her the generic gem, then do Sig her all the way up. The difference is big enough for you to notice it. Trust me on that. Right, spot number 3 is Archangel. Archangel is still absolutely running rampant through the contest. He has obviously been helped with the fact that Kabam has had to diversify the immunities over time, and just a list of suitable Archangel targets endlessly keeps increasing. And he's still one of the, if not the best option, whenever you can freely bleed and poison the opponent. And he just tears through so much of the content. Act 6, Act 7, there were times when I brought in 5 and 6-star Archangel. And obviously that Sig ability is a perfect example of where you do not need to bother about getting him to the mythic Sig 112 level. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff. As long as you get him awakened, that's it. That's the only thing that matters. There's, again, one of those popular things where people say you need to get him to that level. Blah, blah. It's all absolute bullshit. To put it bluntly, I had Sig 20 Archangel for a really, really long time at the rank 3 level, and I had Sig 200 rank 5-star. Not in a single fight ever I can recall myself wishing that my Archangel was higher Sig level. That's the end of the story. If Archangel does that fight, if you're going to use Archangel for a fight, trust me, he's going to do it just as well at Sig 20 as he would at Sig 200. There's going to be virtually no difference. And that's just the way it is. If Archangel works for a fight, he's going to do it. I haven't had like a single time that I can recall where I would have wanted my Archangel higher Sig. I think at the moment I have duped him a couple of times. Mine's at like Sig 60. But again, there is virtually no difference. So don't bother Sigging him up. I would probably leave him at like, you know, Sig 20 and fine, why not, whatever, and move on. And he's definitely very much so worth that Awakening Gem. The top 2 options in game at the moment, Nick Fury, in my opinion, used to be the best target for a signature stone. Nick Fury is definitely very much so worth everything that's awesome about Nick Fury. Well, not everything that's awesome, but we all know that in order to experience the real Nick Fury, you need that Sig ability. Because without Sig ability, you don't have that second life, you don't have that permanent fury, you can't access the insane mega damage that he has, so on and so forth. He's obviously still a good champion, even unawakened, to a point where a lot of people have ended up taking him to rank 3. And, you know, typically when I use Nick Fury for Alliance War, let's say, I don't ever really touch that second life, and he's still capable of putting in plenty of work in many of the fights. But again, to be able to fully enjoy the champion, that Awakened ability is an absolute must. Not to mention the fact that he is an absolutely amazing champion. He's very much so worth your rank up resources and investment, and he just tears through content. Absolutely love the guy. And the best target in the game for a generic Awakening gem, Hercules. The dude just has everything. It's an insanely good champion that's the top of the game. He has super high prestige. His SIG is useful at low, mid, and high level. Obviously, ideally, you want to get in as much as you can in terms of his 6 stones, but even if you are unable to do so immediately, you will still get enormous benefit from that SIG ability. And that SIG ability is extremely important. That SIG ability lets up completely new dimension, completely new levels of cheese. I rely on that SIG ability virtually every day playing map 8. Because of Hercules, I don't have to be overly careful. I can just, you know, get hit, go immortal, and just blitz through the opponents, being unblockable, and, you know, smash them within those, you know, few seconds. Because his damage output is fire, especially if you run Liquid Courage Double Edge. And this is everything that you might want from a champion that you give a generic Awakening gem to. By far the best target in the game, period. I don't think anybody else comes as close to ticking virtually every single box. Amazing champion, check. Amazing prestige, check. Amazing, you know, utility, check. Amazing SIG ability, check. Works well in low, mid, high SIG levels, check. Everything you could potentially want at any given situation. Whenever there's Hercules, there is a generic gem that is, you know, having a perfect target. That's about it. I don't want to keep you guys longer. As I said, I had recorded a video like this a while ago, but people still want to know my current thoughts. So here we are. This is kind of like arbitrary top 10. I know that a lot of people would still want to point out Captain America Infinity War, maybe Diablo. There are plenty of other amazing champions that are well worth Awakening gems. And entirely, you know, it's up to you at the end of the day. These are just my thoughts and my opinions. That being said, catch you guys later. See ya.
Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the